So we have some folks here from a couple different companies you've probably heard of, OpenAI and Anthropic. Be an interesting conversation. Both of them got up to some interesting stuff this week. Please welcome to the stage Theo from Anthropic and Dmitry from OpenAI. Hi guys, first of all, thank you so much for coming to MCP Night 2.0. It's pretty cool to have both people from these two major AI labs here on the stage, where I know that the two companies are sort of competitive in terms of products, building new models, hiring people from each other. But it seems like MCP is one of the areas that you guys collaborate.
Yeah.
MCP is like the safe common ground between the two organizations. I wanted to ask first from Theo about kind of the origins of MCP, how it came about in Anthropic, and then hear from Dmitry about when you guys got involved. When did you decide to dip your toe in? What's all that about?
Yeah. So if you go back about a year ago now, basically, as the models are getting smarter and smarter, people were constantly just copying and pasting context back and forth between things outside the model to the context window itself, and people wanted to build integrations. They wanted to give the model access to your Sentry logs or Slack or wherever you're doing your day-to-day work. And as we started seeing more people have these use cases, we realized that it kind of was like a one-off every single time you wanted to build an integration. And so if you standardized how the model would talk to the integration, it would make it really easy for anyone to go and build that integration. So that kind of was the birth of MCP, was basically just enabling the model to actually have the agency to reach out into the outside world.
Yeah, and that was 10 years ago in November of 2024.
10 years in AI land, yes.
Yeah, a lot has happened since then. Yeah. How about OpenAI? So I don't remember exactly when you guys announced you were going to start supporting MCP and working in that. Bring us back to that and kind of what you've been working on since then.
Yeah, we added support back in March, initially with our Agents SDK. And I remember when we first saw MCP kind of get released, it was really exciting. And we saw the adoption kind of before the holidays, and it really picked up after the holidays. And we're like, wow, there is something here. Folks have been using function calling to connect to APIs for a long time, but having a more standardized way that's more reusable made a ton of sense. And a lot of our customers really wanted it, especially on the API side. And so we decided to officially support it across the full range of our APIs. Responsive supports it now, our Agents SDK, and ChatGPT. So we're really excited by what it's unlocked so far, and I think we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah, I think we're just getting started. We saw a bunch of demos tonight with ChatGPT. What are some of these early, I think it's still early in terms of MCP.
Oh, definitely.
early use cases that you all are seeing that you're excited about? Either, I'm curious, internally, maybe ways that you're using, or developers that you're seeing building stuff.
We were just talking about this before. I don't know if you want to kick off with some of the stuff that you were talking about.
Yeah, we see it a lot on kind of the internal agent building paradigm, being able to connect to and discover internal tools and have kind of a loose coupling, kind of think microservices where teams can independently iterate and piece together tools from other teams in an AWS kind of microservices sort of way. And then externally, there's just a ton of momentum. It makes it a lot easier to connect to existing tools and find kind of curated, kind of context-aware definitions of tools that make sense for MCP clients. So yeah, it's really picked up quite a lot this year.
Yeah, I think some of the things that I'm really excited about are just seeing a lot more people building agents now that you don't have to build integrations. So you can just focus on the intelligence layer, the logic layer, the user experience, something we don't talk about that much in AI, but you can focus on everything that just isn't the integration anymore.
You mentioned agents. Both of you talked about that. I want to ask more about this. So I think we've managed to go the whole night almost without saying the A word, agents. But obviously, AI agents are the thing that's booming. If you go talk to people in the enterprise, it's like agents are taking our jobs. How does MCP and agents interleave or interact? What are you seeing in terms of agentic APIs and how MCP will maybe fit into that? I feel like both of you probably have a pretty interesting perspective here.
I mean, every agent needs actions that it can take, and it needs context. In ignoring the word agent for a second, the way that we think about it is we call it a virtual collaborator. Like think about your coworker, what makes them so useful. It's that they have the ability to take actions, but they're taking the right actions because they have access to data and context and knowledge. And both of those things, unless you're building one-off integrations, both of those things without MCP is just significantly harder. And so we really see MCP as just a core building block of anything agentic.
Yeah, I think to add on to that, I think the other kind of elephant in the room is agents over MCP. And so thinking about agentic workflows as an extension of a tool that's long running, that might have multiple turns. I think the lines between what a tool is and what an agent is are really kind of like starting to blur together. And I think MCP is kind of like the right protocol to support invoking and using both.
So you're saying I would call out from like an MCP client into a tool that maybe isn't just hitting a REST API like one of these demos, but is actually going off and doing some agentic thing.
Totally.
That's out there. Yeah. That's pretty exciting. What do you guys think are the biggest blockers to maybe more MCP adoption? Is it the clients? Are there things missing in the protocol?
Enterprise security.
Security? Well, do I have the thing for you?
Tell me a little bit more about your product.
We'll cover that later.
No, I promised I was not paid to say that. But no, really, I do think that there's a lot of layers on top of MCP that can be built that we're both excited for people to jump into the ecosystem and build more about. And also, there's just a lot of stuff that people haven't really discovered yet from a research and science perspective. I think we're going to see a lot more people doing research around data exfiltration, prompt injections, like all the things that you hear about from a security perspective. Probably going to see a lot more companies, both startups and enterprises, start thinking about what it looks like in an AI-first world.
Yeah, mine's pretty similar. I think like data and tools are kind of a double-edged sword. If you want to build something useful with AI, you need to bring in your tools and your data, especially if you're an organization that wants to automate like your key workflows. Like that's like the lifeblood of what you want to automate. At the same time, you really need to have a lot of trust to pass that up over the wire. And so like security, building confidence in like the governance behind MCP connections is like huge. I think that's like the biggest opportunity, but also the biggest like challenge today.
I wonder if we're going to see like an MCP security penetration test kind of firm. You have those for like web security. It makes sense to have it for AI stuff soon.
Yeah.
In terms of talking about what other folks are building, we kind of talked about other people maybe building enterprise security. I know a lot of people in this audience here are builders, building new stuff in MCP and looking for new project ideas. Where else do you think there's white space? Or if you were to call out and have your request for startups around MCP, what would that be?
Honestly, the simplest thing is just more servers. Like, there's not a ton of really, really great servers yet. I think there's a ton of really early servers, but you need to iterate on like tool design, on the servers actually doing the thing that they're supposed to do. I think we're just going to see a lot more servers. And then we're also going to see people starting to chain servers so that they become more complex, so that you're not just doing the exact same things that you could do with like an API. So I think we're going to see a lot more evolution in servers.
I think like decomplexifying auth, I think that's like the big thing that comes to mind is like, it's just so hard to, especially on the developer side, if you're building an integration with a bunch of MCP servers, managing all of those credentials, doing step-ups for individual users. There's just like so many steps involved. And so if you can make that easier, I think that's like a huge market.
I'm going to ask this question. It's kind of self-serving because I love talking about auth and identity. It feels like every demo we saw tonight has sort of a different way of connecting to MCP. We saw OAuth, we saw bearer token stuff. There's even public MCP servers like the documentation servers. How do you think developers should think about doing authentication or maybe like authorizing different tool calls? Like the current MCP stuff, you just connect it and get all the tools. Any thoughts you can share around that for these kind of commercial-focused MCPs?
Michael, I'm so glad you asked. Have you heard about a company called WorkOS?
Are you guys building it? Should we build it? Should they build it? I don't know.
I mean, I think there's like two pieces there. There's like the spec itself, and there's been a lot of development with like DCR and making it easier to, as a client, like connect to lots of servers without needing to know about them a priori. And then the other piece is actually like implementing the thing. And I think there's like opportunities in both. Like I think the spec needs to keep evolving. We need to make it easier to kind of think about auth and through like the agentic lens, where you might want to be able to discover services like as emergent behavior as your agents run without needing to know about them beforehand. And then also like autonomy like really changes a lot of kind of the OAuth paradigm. It's like there's an agent on behalf of a user, on behalf of potentially their organization. There's like levels of nesting. And I think just like reasoning about that is also a big opportunity.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening around identity. You mentioned the kind of spec or the protocol. One of the most interesting things to me about how MCP is being developed is it's happening in the open. It's not happening like in some secret cabal, I don't think, of people that are developing this and then releasing it. It's actually in these open GitHub discussions, GitHub issues, pretty long threads. Can either of you talk about that, how you're involved in the kind of open governance model or how that's come to be?
Yeah, I mean, I think we always wanted to make it open from the beginning because otherwise you end up back in the proprietary ecosystem where each integration is just built one-off. So the whole value prop really is about it being open, and that means that actually for us, we use the Discord more than we use Slack. We use the GitHub more than we use Slack, and so it's actually quite funny. I think we are somewhat removed from the rest of the company in how we communicate with each other. But I think it's very much by design that we want to push everything out into the open.
To be in the open like that, yeah.
Yeah, it was a big factor in us adopting MCP at OpenAI, kind of seeing like genuine commitment to openness and being able to have external contributors to the spec and kind of the activity within the community around new feature developments, standards changing, seeing that it's like malleable enough to kind of not get locked in gave us a lot of confidence.
I feel like it's one of the reasons why the protocol is moving so fast, and also there's like cool stuff getting added to it. It's the ideas are coming from everywhere, like the UI stuff that we showed here. It's pretty sweet. A lot of companies using MCP right now are connecting it, I think, to like these external services. I wanted to ask about how you guys use it internally at companies, because I think MCP originally was built, as I understand it, at Anthropic for like connecting internal stuff, internal context, internal systems. I would suspect you have one of the most rich internal ecosystems around MCP. What are things that maybe other people aren't thinking about doing around MCP that you guys have discovered, either at Anthropic or OpenAI?
I think a lot of the nuts and bolts of actually doing something internally actually come down to the non-AI parts of it. It's a lot of the like enterprise security, enterprise authentication parts that we've invested a lot in. But internally, there's also just like a lot of people that are building for their own workflows where you then find that they're sharing things with their teammates. And I think what is really important about that is that they have to actually have the mandate to be able to go and build things for themselves. It's kind of like tech debt, right? Like you have to have the mandate to actually go and fix your thing for it to get fixed. Otherwise, no one does it. And so I think we actually have a pretty big company-wide mandate on like, let's actually make sure that we're using AI to like speed up our workflows. And that allows people to go and like spend some time building something for themselves that actually makes it useful. And that means you end up with a proliferation of these sorts of tools.
Yeah, I think for us, I mean, like connectors internally have been like huge, like having more ChatGPT connectors for our own like internal search. That's like really sped up people's workflows. And so like being customer like zero, customer one for all of our like MCP investments has really made a difference internally. And so like it's been a kind of a self-fulfilling, or it's been like a positive feedback loop where the more we use them, the more excited we get, and the more we build. So.
When I've been building MCP servers, I feel like I'm still like print debugging, kind of. Like the dev tools are a little bit different. Any tips that you have for me, or maybe anybody else, around how to effectively debug these things and work? You're mentioning tech debt. Feels like you can have MCP debt pretty fast and need to go debug this stuff.
Yeah, if anyone out there would like to contribute to Inspector, please, please do. I think actually one of the things that I will say is tool design is something where I think people can spend just a little bit more time on. Oftentimes when people are running into issues, it's like they're overloading the context window or the wrong thing is getting called, they're just not defining the tool well enough. And so I think what we've found to be really helpful is similar with how you might think about regular like prompting and evals there. Write your eval for what you want your server to do, go and like run the tools through those evals, and then update the tools if your evals are failing. But that's something that we've seen really help people.
Yeah, we've also been working a lot on evals and supporting tools in evals, and that's been a game changer. Because I think it's becoming more and more of like a realistic workflows. Like you need to be invoking those tools. You need to be able to use MCP servers to truly like mock and reproduce what your agent is doing or what your prompt is doing. Yeah,
that consistent durability is, I think, when it's non-deterministic, that's like a new way of building things. It's very challenging. Yeah. What else I got? I wanted to ask like what your favorite parts of the protocol are. We're amongst friends here. This is a nerdy audience. Things that you think maybe are unexplored or people haven't been building on top of or aren't that under discussed. Anything that comes to mind?
I really like prompts. I work on like some of the prompt management features at OpenAI in our developer platform, and I think being able to expose what prompts to use with what tools is like pretty interesting. Like you kind of have this like meta description layer of like you should use this tool with this additional context, and like be able to like put tool use into a template that like has been tailored to that specific tool. I know it's not been like super widely adopted across MCP, but I think it's like there's definitely a there. Let's see prompts take up or like get more use.
Yeah, there we go.
For me, it's probably resources. I think there's so much you can do with resources. I mean, we saw MCP UI. We've seen people using resources as a way to basically pass back like entire portions of file systems that the model can then RAG over. There's just like a lot of things that you can do with the resources, and I think we've barely scratched the surface.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's more than just tools, folks. Yeah. Well, we just have a few minutes left before, unfortunately, I have to wrap up. I want to talk about the future. Thank you for launching a bunch of stuff this week for us. There was some new features that came, new models from Anthropic, and then of course ChatGPT, or GPT-5 was launched today. The next time we do this event, say it's 3, 4, 5, 6 months in the future, where do you think we'll be with MCP? What trajectory do you think you're on right now? What are you the most excited about if you had a crystal ball?
It's up to the community to tell us where we're going to be in 6 months. All right. Okay, I've heard the feedback from the audience. I've heard the feedback from the audience.
Spicy audience. Great.
No, it's fair. It's fair. But it is true. I think the community is going to drive much of where we're going to be in 6 months. But that said, there are, I guess, balls that are already in motion. We're working on long-running tools. I think that's going to be really impactful for a lot of these agentic workflows. There's a lot of people thinking about updates to how we think about just enterprise problems in general. So all the like security auth problems. And then I think we're going to see a lot more of a focus on how, we've like scratched the surface a little bit with sampling, but I think as you get into these longer running loops with agents, you're going to need to be able to create sub-agents.
Yeah.
And sampling is underspecified, but is a kind of like head nod in that direction, and I think we'll probably explore a lot more in that arena.
That's pretty exciting. Anything from you guys?
I think for me, like personally, I think the biggest thing is like the metaphor is like paving the cow paths, like looking at what people are doing and making that easier. And so I would really want to see the ergonomics of adopting MCP on both the client side and the server side get like much easier. And so like everyone is spinning up MCP servers. it's really easy to connect to a number of servers as a client, and you don't have to like wade through a lot of like the spec in order to kind of understand what's happening. I think like we have a big role to play here. The community has a big role to play here. But I think if that happens, I really see this becoming like the way to connect context to LLMs and really get like magic out of the system.
Guys, thank you so much for coming to MCP Night. Please big round of applause.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.